By the way, we would love to be giving this presentation in person, but unfortunately with COVID, we're doing all of our presentations virtually, and that's just kind of the way of the world right now. So thanks you guys for being patient with us. So once again, my name is Kirsten. I work for Dakota County in the Environmental Initiatives Unit. I'm joined by Jenny Kedward, who also works with me in the Environmental Initiatives Unit. And we kind of work together on providing environmental education for people in Dakota County. I love doing this part of my job. I love being able to connect to passionate people who love getting engaged and giving back for the environment. It's really exciting. So I work doing presentations like this one. I also help out with the multifamily program, helping out with the environmental education checkouts. So I wear lots of hats with the county, but I'm really happy that you're here today. We're gonna get started. So this presentation was put together for us to give you an overview of waste reduction and recycling at home. So I'm going to ask you to participate with us a little bit. I'd like you to think about a place, and this is supposed to be your happy place. And maybe it'll take you a minute or two, but think about where this is for you. It could be somewhere you visited when you were young. It could be somewhere that you visited recently. It could be a place that you always go to, but it can be anywhere. Now I'm going to ask you guys to step up and possibly unmute yourself and maybe share where this place is. And we'll just take a minute or two and just talk about this. Does anybody want to share where their happy place is? You can also put in the chat function, totally fine. I can share where mine is while people are thinking. Again, it's totally okay if you don't want to interact. I understand. Let's see what somebody said. The dock on our lake, yes. I love those lakes. They're so peaceful, absolutely. My happy place is along the Superior Hiking Trail. So my husband and I have been hiking little sections of the Superior Hiking Trail. Minnesota has our own hiking trail. For those of you that don't know, it's about 300 miles long, and we've just been doing little sections, maybe one weekend a month in the summer. And it's just been really peaceful and relaxing, and it's our time together. And it's just being out in nature really makes me happy. Does anybody else want to share where their happy place is? Maybe you can think about that. Totally fine. So while you're thinking about your happy place, you might think about what makes you happy about it. And if you heard my example, I mentioned being out in nature, being with my husband, doing something that I love, all those things revolve around an experience and being around people that I love. It's not necessarily related to the stuff or things. When we go backpacking, we do need a backpack. You need to carry some gear, but really what matters and what makes us the most happy doesn't really revolve around stuff. And yet we find so much of our time is related to thinking about stuff. All right. So we're going to continue setting the stage for the presentation today. And again, it's just going a little slow. Bear with me. Here, I'm going to try this. There we go. All right. What is zero waste? Does anyone want to venture a guess on what zero waste is? If not, it's okay. So I'll tell you what our definition of zero waste is. It's the goal of eliminating waste rather than sending it to the landfill or incinerator. And we're going to talk about a little bit today about how and why this is important. Zero waste really can mean different things to different people. And so it might mean something a little bit different to you. But this jar of waste is really made popular by a major influencer named Bae Johnson, and she is someone who is an author, a speaker, an influencer. She's done a few TED Talks talking about how she brought her family of 4 on this zero waste journey, and she just realized how much trash the average American produces, which is about 4.3 pounds of garbage in one day. And they decided to try to reduce, reuse, and recycle as much as they could so that they were throwing as little as possible into their trash. And they were very successful. This is all that they produced within a year. So don't let this scare you. This might be your goal, is to be able to throw nothing into the trash. And that's awesome. It also might not be your goal, but this is just kind of setting the stage for what zero waste can mean for a lot of people. So something that we're gonna just talk about today, I'm probably gonna say this multiple times, but just don't get overwhelmed by all the stuff that there is out there for you to help you in your zero waste journey. Really, today we want you to start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And that's said by author Ashy. So really today we want you to look around your home, see what you have, and figure out where you can start. Where would be the low-hanging fruit, for lack of better terms. So can you set a goal for yourself and take something away from the talk today and just start implementing it into your daily lives? That would be amazing. We'd love to be able to hear some of what you plan to do after this presentation today, maybe in the question and answer time. All right, so next we're going to go over some terminology just to kind of make sure that there's no confusion. When I talk about the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle, they're said that way on purpose in that order. Reduce means not creating a product in the first place. I also might interchange that with reduction, so I apologize if that happens. But reduce means not creating a product in the first place. Reuse, on the other hand, means using a product over and over. And then recycling means taking a product, breaking it down and processing it and making it into a new type of material, like a brand new product. So they are different, but they just kind of get confused and people use them interchangeably. But for the presentation today, we're talking about different things. And this is why. So we're going to just talk a little bit technical today, just really quick. Why is it said it that way? Why is it reduce, reuse, recycle, and not the other way around? If we're talking about a type of material, and I'm just going to use paper as an example, paper has to go through all of these steps to make it into what we would call paper. So when we're creating paper, we have to start by getting the raw materials, we have to prepare it, we have to manufacture it, we would use it. This is where you're actually being able to see that piece of paper and then dispose of it. So often as consumers, we just get kind of caught up in this part of the cycle, just in that use and disposal part of the process. But when you think about a piece of paper, it's had to go through all of these different steps. And in all of these steps, that piece of paper is using natural resources, it's using up a ton of energy, it's creating waste, and it's actually creating pollution. And that's generated throughout its life cycle in every single one of these steps. So definitely there's a lot of stuff that goes into creating what we use for maybe only a minute or two in our consumer society. So we're going to talk about recycling a lot today. Is there a dark side to recycling? Recycling is definitely not perfect, and we're going to talk about why right now. If you took that piece of paper and, we prepared it, it's manufactured, we use that product, and we recycle it, we're only cutting out one of these steps in the whole cycle. Now, thank goodness, this does tend to be the most pollution heavy part of the process, but still, when we're looking at recycling, we're still doing all of these steps. We're still using quite a bit of natural resources. We're still using quite a bit of energy. We are still creating a little bit of pollution, unfortunately. So recycling is not perfect at all. This is a pie chart that was put together by the Environmental Protection Agency in 2009, and it's capturing a snapshot of our greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. Now you'll notice up here, the provision of goods is the largest chunk of the pie, 29%. So that again is this whole process. So 29% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from the provision of goods. Now, if we recycled absolutely everything in the United States, it would only cut our greenhouse gas emissions by 6%. And that's what this little line means here. Only 6% if we recycled absolutely everything. So, especially in our unit, we talk a lot about recycling, and recycling is a very great process. It's really good for the materials that we do have, but it doesn't capture everything. It's not perfect. So, on the other hand, if we find a way to reuse a product, look at how many of these squares we're cutting out. In this example, if we find a cotton reusable bag and we find a way to use it over and over, maybe we're washing that reusable bag, which you should be after every use, that reusable bag is going to save so many natural resources. It's going to save a lot of energy. It's going to cut down on a lot of pollution that would otherwise be happening if we were using its disposable counterpart. Until eventually one day when that cotton reusable bag has a ton of holes in it, like most of mine do, and you'll eventually have to dispose of that product somehow. But look at how much you are preventing when you are reusing that stuff. Now, go even further. If you reduce the use of that stuff, and I will say I have been that person to go to a store, I forgot my bags at home, and I was determined not to take a bag. And so I was like sticking limes in my jacket pocket and, loading my arms up full of groceries. And the cashier said, "Don't you want to take a bag?" And I was like, "No, thank you. I've got this." I'm like dropping my produce when I'm walking out the store. But it was so important to me at that moment to reduce. I did not want to have to take something that was going to get disposed of. So reduce cuts out all of these steps, and it's making the greatest impact on the environment. All right, so it's not fun for me to go and potentially bruise my produce when I'm going to the store and try to make a statement by not taking a bag. It's not always fun. It's not easy to reduce and reuse all the time, especially in our consumer society. Advertisers want us to see this, the happy smiley face of somebody who is shopping and buying new things, and they want us to constantly ask ourselves, am I out of style? And could I be happier if I bought this new thing? Or, obviously I need this brand new golf coffee mug so I can play golf with my coffee. Like, obviously I need that. But the reality for lots of people, I apologize, my cat's meowing. The reality for lots of people is this. This might look like a common scene for many people. The reality could be this and this. If we focus more of our time and energy on experiences rather than things, we're going to find ourselves a whole lot happier, hopefully. Our grandparents and great-grandparents really had to figure out how to reduce and reuse as much as possible. They were the pros and the experts because they had to, right? In the Great Depression, they had to figure out how to use what they had because otherwise they weren't going to have anything else. So that's where this phrase came from, I believe, was use it up, wear it out, make it do or do without. I love that. I love that our grandparents and great-grandparents, they were the pioneers here. So we're going to talk through a bunch of ways that you can reduce and reuse, and then we're going to talk about a few more of these items in depth. But I'm curious if anybody wants to share any ways that you can reduce and reuse at home. Does anybody want to share any ideas? I did mention a few. You can unmute yourselves or put it in the chat. We love to hear from you too. Composting, yeah, absolutely. And we will be talking about composting at the end of the presentation today, briefly. We use YouGot. Is that supposed to be a clothesline? Yep. Wow. Yeah, I hadn't even thought of a clothesline. That's true. So you're not using your dryer. Yeah, those are excellent. Oh, yogurt containers to freeze soup. Yes, absolutely. Those are excellent examples. All right. All right, so these are some examples of reduce and reuse. You can borrow, share, rent, use libraries, not just libraries for books, but also there are libraries for things like tools and toys. Find a way to pack a no waste meal. So finding a way not to throw away anything after you're done with your meal. Bring your own whatever. So that could be your cup, mug, bag. Opt for towels, like cloth towels rather than paper towels. Be a thrifting superstar. So finding ways to not just donate, but also purchase used. Finding ways to repair rather than throw something away. Saying no thank you. That is huge for prevention. Finding ways to get off of the junk mail and catalogs lists. Giving experiences rather than things. We've talked about that. Using less of fewer products. Buying from the bulk bins. We're going to talk about that. Planning your meals. And make your own cleaners. These are all great ways to just get started with low waste living and reducing your waste at home. But like I already hinted, this is by no means the entire list. There are so many things that you can do in your homes. All right, so we're going to get more in depth on some of these things. So first we're going to talk about getting off of junk mail lists. First of all, I would say that many things allow you to do online or electronic billing. So I think like 90% of my bills come to my email every time I need to pay something. And it's really nice because then it's one less thing coming into my mail. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm currently receiving a ton of campaign items or like holiday items because of the time of year. And so if you can find a way to get off of those junk mail lists, we do have a Hold the Mail brochure. It's listed on our website, some tips on how to get off of those junk mail lists. You'll find a way that you're not just like grabbing your mail, looking at it, and throwing it right into the recycling. If you're preventing that waste from coming to your house, you're going to make a huge impact because then the producer is not going to automatically send you stuff. You know, that mail wasn't created. We're preventing those resources from getting essentially wasted. It's not easy getting off of a lot of junk mail lists. I know I was really diligent when I was in my last apartment building, and I sat down and went through a bunch of junk mail items, and I would be calling or emailing, please take me off of this list. And then we bought our first house and it's back to square one. So I have to start all over, and you know what? That's just part of the process. So stopping the junk mail before it gets to you makes a huge impact. Next on the list is using less of fewer products. So this cupboard might look pretty familiar to you. I know I used to have one like this as well. So the example that I'm going to talk about is actually reusable bags, because I know a lot of people have just a whole stock of reusable bags. And maybe that's good if you're actually using them. But according to the Pollution Control Agency, you actually have to use your reusable bag at least 10 times for it to be better than using its disposable counterpart. So you have to find a way to use your reusable bag 10 times, washing it in between. Otherwise, if you're just going to use it once or twice and throw it away, you might as well using the paper or plastic bags. So if you're using less of your fewer products, maybe just having like 2 or 3 reusable bags and using them consistently until there's nothing left, you're going to make more of an environmental impact than if you have 20 reusable bags that you never use. All right, next we're going to talk about the bulk bins. And so these images actually came from the Seaward Co-op in Minneapolis. So I know that bulk bin buying is intimidating for a lot of people because it seems like, you don't want to get in other people's way, or you don't really know what the process is. It's really, really simple. And the bulk bins are really nice because rather than you going and buying a whole jar of something that you may never use again, you can actually go and just get maybe a tablespoon or whatever measurement you might need. And then you don't have that jar full of stuff sitting in your cupboard for forever. Also, bulk bins are really nice because you can, with COVID, it's a little bit tricky. I know not all places are allowing you to bring your own container, but in normal, non-COVID land, you would be able to bring your own container, use up the contents inside of it, wash it, bring it back, rather than buying a package that would all otherwise be thrown away because some packaging is just not designed to be recyclable. It's just designed to be tossed once it's empty. So anyways, using the bulk bins, all you have to do is bring your container of whatever you're going to carry your stuff inside of. You would weigh it at the scale, and then you record its contents on the little sticky note, or you could use your cell phone to track these things inside of. You would fill your chosen container with a product, and then write the PLU or the product number on the container or in your phone, and just track that stuff for the cashiers. And that's it. It's really pretty simple. And the bulk bins are really nice for things such as teas, spices, snacks, greens, pastas, soaps, and detergents. And yeah, that's pretty much it. They're really nice. I will say that I love shopping bulk now. It's actually now one of my happy places. I go there on Sunday mornings and I just take all of my time and I record the PLU and I just scoop the little thing. It's fun for me. It's my other happy place. So maybe it become your happy place as well. All right, another thing you can do is repair your items rather than throw it away. So I don't know how many people have heard of the Dakota County Fix-It Clinics. The Fix-It Clinics are a monthly event that actually they started in about 2016, and they are designed to help people repair their items rather than throw them away. And they were developed because we're not necessarily taught how to repair things. I know I had a sewing class when I was 10 years old, but if something on my jacket breaks, I might not necessarily know how to fix it. I might put it in my closet for a little while and forget about it, and then get annoyed that this broken jacket is in my closet, and the average person will probably throw that jacket away. So the Fix-It Clinics are supposed to be a free event where you arrive, you get teamed up with a fixer, they'll sit down with you and coach you through the repair of your item. And if you're really uncomfortable with it, they'll assist you in repairing that item. And it's just a really fun environment. And in non-COVID land, they were in person, a large group of people just encouraging you to repair your stuff. So it's you can bring a lot of your regular household goods, electronics. There's a lot of mending that happens at these clinics. Now with COVID, Fix-It Clinics have moved virtual, and so we still have had monthly clinics. They have been over Zoom, and so we have had coaches signing on with people who still have broken items, and now people are fixing their own stuff virtually. And so that's been really interesting too, but it's totally something that's open to you guys to attend in the future if you want, Dakota County Fix-It Clinic. All right, so you can also be a thrifting superstar. I think I kind of already mentioned this before, but especially I know with the stay-at-home order lifting back in the spring or summer, everybody had just piles and piles of stuff that they wanted to donate and get out of their house, which is awesome. Definitely donate your stuff rather than throw it away. But also it goes hand in hand with going and supporting our reuse retailers and shopping for used stuff as well. You know, these reuse retailers, they need us to support their business in order for them to continue to take our used stuff. So Dakota County does have a really nice reuse map listed on their website. It looks like this, where you can look up and find the closest reuse retailer to where you live and some general information like that on there. So that's something that's available to you. All right, so if you're feeling overwhelmed, and again, I hope you're not feeling overwhelmed by all the things you can do, this could be a totally legitimate place to start. A personal story of mine was about 4 years ago, I was working for Hennepin County. I was working on what they have is a zero waste household challenge. So I was actually a mentor for about 10 to 15 households in Hennepin County, people who wanted to reduce their waste. And I would help guide them through their zero waste journey. And it was really, really fun. But something that kept coming up over and over again was how much packaging families were throwing away, and it all had to do with where they were shopping. So I went back to my house and I found the exact same thing. I found that I had all this packaging that was cheap when I bought it, but then I felt bad because I was throwing it into the trash. And so a change that I made in my own life was to switch where I shopped, because so often waste reduction or waste prevention happens before something enters your shopping cart at the grocery store. If you find a product and you know that the packaging is not going to be something that could be recycled or composted or reused, if you know it's going to be trash, then maybe you could pick a different product or pick a different store. So really, waste prevention happens before you leave your grocery store. If it enters your home, then you're going to have to figure out how to get rid of that item. I'm just going to touch on this briefly. Zero waste is kind of becoming this new trend, and I think that's really great. But something that is kind of a misconception is that you have to buy all of these new fancy things on the left-hand side in order to be a good environmentalist, and that's not true. You do not need to go and buy a bunch of beeswax wraps to replace cling wrap or aluminum foil in your house. You could easily just use like a plate as a cover. Or I even grew up in a household where my mom would always wash and reuse her Ziploc bags. You know, there was always Ziploc bags hanging up in our kitchen on stuff, and I find myself doing the exact same thing, just finding a way to reuse the stuff I have currently in my house. I see that, oh, hi, Sarah, you have raised your hand. Let me just finish this really quick. Also, on like a stainless steel water bottle, you might not necessarily need to buy a whole new stainless steel water bottle. You could use what you have at home. So finding a way to reuse a glass bottle, totally legit. So you don't need to break the bank going and buying a bunch of zero waste essentials when you could use what you have in your home. All right. Oh. All right, Sarah does not have a question. Thanks for the thumbs up, Sarah. I appreciate it. So use what you have at home. Also, I was going to mention the plate as a cover thing. I absolutely just did that like last week because I was too lazy to go find something else. Totally works in your home. All right, so we've talked a lot about waste reduction, ways you can reuse in your home. And now we're going to kind of switch gears and talk about recycling. All right, so I'm going to just jump right into things. In Dakota County, when you throw something away, generally, I guess it's most of the time, it's going to go into a landfill. Rarely, it might be incinerated. The landfill might look a lot like this picture down here. Now, in a landfill, something is put into a hole in the ground. The hole is lined with some heavy-duty materials, but essentially, it's just covered with dirt at the end of the night. More trash is put on top of it, and then it's compacted in the landfill and is going there to sit for forever. And unfortunately, if recyclables had entered the trash, they would be going to the landfill to sit there for forever. Now, on the other hand, recycling, it goes on a much longer journey. Your recyclables will be picked up and brought to a sorting facility and placed on a conveyor belt that looks a lot like this one. So there are actual humans touching your recyclables and your materials in addition to machinery. So on this conveyor belt, it's moving really fast. These humans are pulling things off this conveyor belt that look things similar to like bike chains and carburetors and all sorts of things that people put in the recycling that don't belong in there. And your recyclables will then pass through lasers and all sorts of technology, sending it, here and there and all over the place. And your recyclables at the end will get baled into massive bales and sent off to the next facility to get made into a new product. We have lots of places in the state of Minnesota that take our recyclables, and the ones that we like to give credit to, one of them is By the Yard, located in Jordan, Minnesota. And I like hearing that people know that facility. So if you've heard of By the Yard, tell us, because they take all of our milk and water jugs and they make the processed plastic into patio decking and also patio furniture. So this plastic furniture, it looks like wood, and it's actually made to be more durable than a piece of wooden furniture. And so you can leave it out in the winter and rain and it won't really degrade. And it's a facility that's close to where we live. And so when we recycle, we are supporting our local businesses. All right, so recycling is still confusing people. Actually, in 2019, we surveyed Dakota County residents and asked them, what's the number one barrier to you not recycling today? And we found that the number one answer that people gave us was they were still confused. They still didn't know what was recyclable, what wasn't. So we asked ourselves, how can we simplify things? So we did. We simplified things. We made the list a lot more understandable, and we're asking people to go back to the basics. We're trying to shift away from the if this, then that. If your hauler is this person, then that. Really, we're asking people to go back to what they know is recyclable because these are the most quality things. So this is the list. It's paper and cardboard, cartons, cans, glass, and plastics. And we're going to get a little bit more in depth on what items are accepted in Dakota County. And then we're going to talk about organic composting, and then we're going to finish up today. All right, so starting with paper. So the paper that's recyclable in Dakota County is mail, office, and school papers, magazines and catalogs, newspapers, and inserts. So basically, almost all of your mail, all those campaign ads are recyclable. Staples are fine, and then the plastic windows are okay. You can leave those in there. Also accepted in Dakota County, I know lots of people are getting cardboard from their online shopping during COVID, so that's absolutely recyclable. Also accepted is paperboard, so that would be your cereal and cracker boxes, shoe, gift, electronics boxes, your boxes from toiletries, and then I had to move this little window, and then meds and toiletry boxes. On the paper no list are plates and cups. They are just probably contaminated with food, so just don't put those in the recycling. And the napkins and tissues, they're just going to fall apart if you put them into the recycling, so don't put those in there. All right, what do you guys think about shredded paper? Is shredded paper accepted in recycling? You can put yes or no in the chat. Sherry thinks no. Anybody else? Shredded paper. Thanks, Sarah. All right. You guys are right. Shredded paper. They do not want shredded paper in the recycling. And this is hard for a lot of people to hear because, you know, they shred a lot of their documents and so diligently separate it from their trash, and they put it in the recycling. They might even staple it closed and put a little sign on there saying shredded paper. But if this paper bag makes it to the sorting facility, there's just no way that's not going to break open and pop confetti paper shreds everywhere and just create a paper mess all over the tipping floor and sorting line. And unfortunately, paper, when it gets wet, it just sticks to other materials. And so the sorting facilities have told us no more shreds. Please, no more shreds. So our recommendation to you guys today is to shred only what's necessary. For things that you're concerned about, like confidential documents, you can use retail drop-off sites. You can go to an annual shred event. I know each city in Dakota County is required to offer one shred event, and that's free. And then already shredded paper can go to the recycling zone. But don't put your shredded paper in your recycling. All right, next on the list is cans. So cans are absolutely accepted in the recycling. So that would be all food and beverage cans. So labels are okay, you can leave them on there. And then any loose lids can go into the can and pinch it closed. On the can no list, which that sounds so funny, on the not accepted list for cans are things like scrap metal, aerosol cans, and pressurized containers. So keep those things out. All right, for glass, things are accepted are food and beverage jars, and then food and beverage bottles. So you can leave the labels on your glass bottles. And then on the not accepted glass list are things like drinking glasses and dishes, mirrors, and window panes. This is just a different type of glass. It just melts at a different temperature. And so try to keep your recycling to only these top things. Try to keep it only your food and beverage glass. For cartons, cartons are the newest material that was added to our accepted list in Dakota County in the metro. So for cartons that are accepted, it's milk cartons, juice boxes, soup and wine cartons. And then make sure that you just remove any straws that you might have. Don't throw those in the recycling. All right, and then plastics are definitely the most confusing thing that we talk about, and totally understandable, so clearing up any confusion today. So in Dakota County, all containers that have the numbers 1s, 2s, or 5s are accepted in the recycling. So if you need a way to remember that, a lot of my colleagues like to say, just remember $1.25. Those are all the numbers that are accepted in recycling. And if you can't necessarily see the number on the chasing arrow symbol, it's all of these materials below. So it's the soda, juice, and water bottles, milk and juice jugs, margarine, cottage cheese, and other tubs, laundry detergent bottles and jugs, clear berry and produce containers. We recommend that you don't crush your materials so it's completely flat. It's nice to have at least some air inside of there. It just helps the sorting process. Make sure that all of your materials, not just plastics, but all of your materials are empty and dry before you put it into the recycling. And then make sure for plastics you keep your caps on. Caps stay on. And then on the plastic no list is plastic bags. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Styrofoam and black plastics. These bottom two are just not quality plastics. Nobody really wants to buy them, and so those need to be put into the trash. All right, so no bags in your bin. Hopefully you've heard this before. I'm probably going to mention it again today. But when you're recycling, we really want it to go into your recycling containers loose. So you could collect it in a plastic bag, empty it in the recycling carts or dumpsters, and then throw the bag away if that's what you really want to do. Otherwise, what we recommend is taking your plastic bags and bringing them elsewhere. Now, do you guys know where you can take your plastic bags? Does anybody want to put in the chat? Does somebody know where you can take your plastic bags rather than in the curbside recycling containers. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Cub Foods. Yes, absolutely, Sherry. Yeah, so Cub Foods, Target, Lunds and Byerly's, basically any major grocery store should have some sort of bin or container where you can bring your dry and clean bags and bundle them up in a big bundle of bags and put them in, and they will get recycled separately. So that's an option that's available to you guys as residents, and it's just much better to get those bags recycled separately rather than trying to throw them into your recycling cart or dumpster. And I'm going to show you why this is so important. So we're talking about the biggest headaches at the sorting facility. A bunch of this in here are plastic bags. So if you can imagine plastic bags, they're loose and they're film and they get wrapped around sorting equipment. And this is actually at a sorting facility right now. And so we've been told by these sorting facility operators that they actually have to shut down all their operation 3 times per shift just to cut out all the plastic bags that have entered their recycling. And these are people that probably have really good intentions. They want to do the right thing with their plastic bags. And so it gets into the recycling. But the number one thing they've asked us to get out of the recycling is plastic bags. All right, moving on. Also things to keep out of the recycling are things like tanglers, so hoses and chains. They do not go in the recycling carts or dumpsters. Things like batteries can actually start fires at sorting facilities if they're punctured, or think about it, a battery moving around a ton of paper, it's a recipe for disaster. So they need to be kept out of the recycling. Diapers do not go in the recycling, and then also food and liquid. So that goes with our whole mantra of empty and dry, just making sure that your materials you would be comfortable touching those things because there are humans touching these materials later on down the sorting line. All right, so when in doubt, look it up or throw it out. We used to always say, when in doubt, throw it out, but now we're changing it. We're saying, when in doubt, look it up or throw it out. If you have something and you're not sure if it's recyclable or not, you don't remember those 5 items that are on that basic list, you can go to the Dakota County Recycling Guide. And this is a search function that's listed on our website. So you just would type in Dakota County Recycling Guide and you would get this nice search bar. And so you can type in the stream or material and hit search, and you would get results specific to you in Dakota County. Now, if you had hit search on, say, like Google, you could get results from Hennepin County, you could get results from Wisconsin, and that's something that we see all the time. And people get confused, like, why is this saying that this is recyclable in Wisconsin, but not in Dakota County? Well, because it's specific to Dakota County. So when you type in, for example, how do I get rid of a calendar? Or what do I do with a calendar? You would type that into the search bar here, hit search, and it'll tell you if you can recycle it, if you should put it in the trash, or if you should do something else with it. That's an option that's totally available to you guys, and I hope that you use it. This is also something that's available in an app format, and we can talk about that later if you want. Also on this website is a waste sorting game. So if you have any little ones at home who are bored out of their minds, you can play this recycling sorting game with them. Also listed on here are recycling events. So I mentioned the shred events just a little bit ago. They'd be listed on this website as well. Hopefully this can be like your go-to if you're not sure about what to do with an item. And if you can't find your item on here, if you don't know if it's on the list, if you're still not sure, just throw it in the trash. That's really what we prefer. All right, on to composting. This is the last big topic of what we're going to talk about today, and we're almost done. Yay! So we don't have a lot of time to talk about this, but I'm just going to touch on it really quick. So composting is a natural process. It's happening all around us. And when we compost, essentially we're taking food scraps, we're introducing it to another material, usually yard waste, and we're introducing microbes to those things to break down those materials, and the end result is a soil amendment that we call compost. And compost can be used by gardeners, it can be used on roadsides. It just helps with preventing erosion and all sorts of great benefits with compost. I love composting. But there are different types of compost that we talk about in Dakota County. First is a backyard compost process, and where you would use like a bin or container similar to this one. You could vermicompost, and when I say vermi, that means like with worms. So you could get a bin, and this is something that you would keep indoors. And for both of these, you would only put things like your apple cores, you could put your eggshells in there, you could put your coffee grounds, but you wouldn't want to put your meat and dairy or bones in there. It's just, you need a hotter process to break down those things. Lastly, in Dakota County, we have our drop sites, or our drop site program, where you could collect all of your organics. So all of your meat, bones, dairy, you could put your coffee grounds, eggshells. You could, if you wanted to put like napkins, Kleenex in there, you could wrap up your compostable bag and then drive it to a drop site. You would enter in a code to get into this little enclosure, and you just drop it off in this like organics dumpster. And then your organics are going to be taken to a commercial composting site where it'll get really hot and break down all of your food scraps. Isn't that cool? So lots of different ways that you can start composting at home. And I will say that the more that you compost, the more you find yourself recycling what's actually recyclable, the more you reduce your waste and find ways to prevent waste, you are going to find absolutely that you have less to throw away. So again, I know that a lot of these things probably seem really big and really scary, and you don't know really how to start, but just starting small. Maybe today you want to start with a low-hanging fruit of maybe you just want to start recycling correctly, and that's awesome. We totally love that, and that's a great goal to have. Or maybe your goal is to start buying in the bulk bins, and that's really awesome too. So we absolutely can do this. We can reduce our waste and make a huge environmental impact. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Are there any questions, or does anybody want to share what their goal is after today? You can unmute yourselves or hit the chat function. We'd love to hear from you. We have about 10 more minutes. Lots of time for question and answer. If you guys don't have anything that you want to say or you want to hear, thank you so much for signing on today. We really appreciate you dealing with us through technology and signing on, even though we wish we could be in person, but we really appreciate you guys.